welcome. Whether you sign it or speak it, welcome, that's that sign, to another edition of Jamaica Magazine. Thank you for this daily invitation into your homes or workspace. As we observe International Day of Sign Languages, we'll move from students signing their way to excellence to another who has chosen to mold lives despite being otherwise able. There's simply not enough time, so let's start this informative journey right now.
Sign with me.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Sign with me.
Good day, I'm Stephen McHugh, and this is your JIS News for Wednesday, September 23. Schools will reopen on October 5 as scheduled, but without the usual face-to-face classes due to the fact that the nation is in the community spread phase of COVID-19. The confirmation came from Education Minister Favour Williams during a virtual press briefing yesterday at the office of the Prime Minister. According to Minister Williams, 3 approaches will be taken to facilitate learning by students. They include an online approach where students will remain at home and access virtual classes via the Education Ministry's learning management system. The ministry will also provide lessons via television, cable and radio starting October 5, as well as printed materials to be used with textbooks and worksheets at home. These will be delivered to agreed drop-off points.
We recognize that schools can and will use a combination of these approaches where possible and appropriate and safe.
Minister Williams also addressed the interest of some principals to have limited face-to-face classes, especially in deep rural areas where there is no internet access.
We're going to be guided by the health-related information, the completion of the health inspections in schools, and so over time, depending on how we move through this pandemic, we will know better how to bring students back in the physical environment in a safe way.
Students have been away from the physical classroom for over 6 months. Schools were closed on March 13, 3 days after Jamaica confirmed its first imported case of the coronavirus. Still on education, the Caribbean Examination Council has reported a slight improvement in the results of this year's CSEC and CAPE examinations. At a virtual meeting yesterday, the council says performance for CSEC mathematics improved by 6%, moving to 52% of students receiving grades 1 to 3. In English A, 82% of candidates obtained passes in grades 1 to 3 when compared to 79% in 2019. There is also a slight improvement in students' performance in chemistry, biology, physics, social studies, and integrated science.
We saw an improvement in the overall for grades 2. All the other grades, we saw a reduction in 4K. The 2019-2020 year, in comparison, was a 1.47% reduction in the acceptable grades. For CSEC, however, we saw a 3.81% increase, where we had an overall 368,735 persons across subject areas receiving acceptable grades for 2019 in comparison to 382,783 in 2020. You're seeing on the screen 97,807 in comparison to 84,565 for 2019. And that's a consistent increase for grades 1 and 2, but a slight reduction for grade 3.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness is urging Jamaicans to utilize online platforms to transact business as government takes measures to contain COVID-19. Mr. Holness made the call at a virtual press conference Tuesday, saying the online transactions will limit the need for long lines and face-to-face interactions. The Prime Minister also used the press conference to extend all current containment measures until October 7. They include the 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. curfews, persons 70 years old and older staying home, the limiting of social gatherings to 15 persons, the ban on funeral services, and the restrictions associated with burials and regular church service. Prime Minister Holness used the press conference to reiterate his call for vigilance in the fight against COVID-19.
The government and our experts have always been consistent and have gone to great lengths to explain to the population that this is a very dangerous disease and that complacency is something that we should never allow to creep in the management of the disease and in our own personal behavior. I do hope that as a society, we are all taking a greater level of compliance and seriousness in our daily behavior as it relates to consistently and faithfully following the established protocols and guidelines.
Mr. Holness also reinforced the fact that government is not considering a lockdown at this time because of its possible devastating impact on the country's economy. He says the appropriate strategy that government is taking is to increase public education to effect a change in public behavior. The Health and Wellness Ministry is adding some 152 hospital beds to increase its capacity to manage possible flow of COVID-19 cases requiring hospital care. This is being done through the setting up of 4 field hospitals, the first of which is being installed at the National Chest Hospital. Portfolio Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton says the ministry is putting in place additional equipment and staffing for the facility, which has a 40-bed capacity. The first field hospital will be handed over this Thursday.
And shortly after, that facility will be commissioned for use.
Dr. Tufton, who was speaking at the OPM virtual press conference yesterday, said another 40-bed facility will be established at the Mandeville Regional Hospital. The government will receive support and co-financing assistance of 100,000 Canadian dollars from the Government of Canada.
That discussion is in full train, and we hope to have the arrival of that facility in short order.
2 36-bed field hospitals will be built at the St. Joseph's and Falmouth hospitals. These will be financed by the government at a cost of $65 million each. Prime Minister Andrew Holness says once a safe vaccine is available, government will make it freely available to all Jamaicans wishing to obtain it. Mr. Holness, while speaking at a virtual press conference on Tuesday, says Jamaica is part of the World Health Organization COVID-19 Global Access Facility, COVAX. The COVAX facility is designed to ensure equal access to safe and effective vaccines by countries globally.
Jamaica has been very conservative, very cautious in approving and using new medicines, vaccines, tests. We have an ethics committee in the Ministry of Health. Our health professionals, they maintain a very high standard, and they also align their approvals with that of the highest authorities on these matters in the world, WHO and PAHO.
The Prime Minister says the government will not risk the health of the citizens. And finally, a $37.7 million contract has been signed to rehabilitate the flanker to Rock Spring roadway between St. James and Trelawney. The project is being implemented by the National Works Agency through its Maintenance of Secondary Roadways program. NWA's Community Relations Officer Janelle Ricketts says the 1-kilometer roadway will involve drain improvement as well as road shaping and resurfacing using asphaltic concrete. The project, which is being executed under local contract with S&G Road Resurfacing Materials, is expected to be substantially completed by year's end. Motorists are being advised to obey the posted warning signs and the instructions of flag persons. And that's it for JIS News Today. I'm Stephen McHugh. Thanks for watching.
I encourage the deaf children to have deaf pride, to know that they can. You're on the same level as a hearing person. It doesn't matter that you can't hear. You have a lot of deaf adults who are successful, and you can achieve. You can get the education that you want, you can do anything that you want, you can achieve. Don't feel like you can't because you're deaf.
In believing that nothing is impossible, I have been able to culture a very positive attitude to life, and that positive attitude has worked for me, and I am confident it will work for others. I would want to say to persons with vision impairment and disabilities, that it is critical that they become tooled or retooled with the appropriate technologies that can help to drive the way forward so that they can accomplish their vision and their goals.
Children with disabilities, whether you have CP or not, I strongly believe that you have a purpose. My disability has taught me that when it says the sky is the limit, it is. There are times when you're going to fall, but what is to stop you from rising?
Today, we're provided with an opportunity to support and protect the linguistic identity of the deaf or sign language users. In our pursuit to help preserve this language, we visited a familiar ground where we discovered a seemingly unfamiliar story. 3 students, deaf, but dancing nonetheless. Here's more.
There's a sort of purposeful selection of the sequence in these human movements. The symbolic significance of hands massaging the air and feet beating to the vibrations of songs. They're focused, energized, ready, and raring to go. If you think about it, they are just like you and I. Well, of course, that's if you can dance. But one thing might be different.
I've been deaf for 23 years, and I've been dancing for 10 years. I've been deaf for 21 years, and I've been dancing for 14 years. So I've been hard of hearing ever since I was born until now, and I've been dancing for 16 years.
Yes, persons like Christoph, Kimberly, and Damani dance. And despite nature's act of removing a seemingly valuable aspect of their senses, these 3 are pursuing a certificate in dance at the Edna Manley College of the Visual and Performing Arts, but not without some challenges.
Well, my experience here, at first, when the 3 of us just arrived, we were a bit awkward in terms of communicating, but then we were able to learn from each other, learning from the hearing students, and we were able to, we had issues as well with the rhythm, keeping up with the rhythm at all times, but then we were eventually able to catch up and we started to improve gradually. So for me, my main issue is timing. So I try to work along closely with the other students in the class and the teacher as well. And then eventually I'm able to catch up with the timing in terms of the music. So my challenge during class, it's really to ensure that my body is moving with the timing and the music.
Deaf dancers do move on the beat and in one accord with the rhythm, but the surprising element in this for most persons is just how are they able to, or even why did they choose dance?
I hear a little of the music and I can feel the vibration on the floor as well. So it's not that bad for me. So I use that method throughout.
With his sense of touch heightened through his loss of hearing, Damani can interpret the music through the vibrations he feels. Deaf dancers are visual learners, so for them, their instructors sign the moves or the counts. While other dancers are busy remembering the details of the moves, those like Damani, Kimberly, and Christoph are counting, keeping time, and watching keenly what their hearing peers are doing so they can interpret the steps.
So I chose to study dancing because dancing is my life. It's my passion ever since. So I want to learn more and more about dancing. I don't want to give up. I don't want to stop. I want to continue. because my goal is to become a dancer in the future. So when I'm finished at Endemani College, I want to become a dancer and I want to perform around the world. So my goal is to become a dance teacher so that I can empower younger deaf children who really love dancing and empower them so that they can, be as good as I am. It's their turn.
But for acting dean at the School of Dance, being deaf is not the biggest obstacle for becoming a great dancer.
I don't want to describe what we have as challenges. I want to describe them as opportunities to learn. What fundamental to dance is the ability to demonstrate and for the dancer to use their eyes and observe and learn the experience in a visual way and then demonstrate what it is that they have been taught. I think one of the interesting things about the deaf students is that their other senses are heightened, and so they're able to access the information in other ways and quite differently from the hearing students. So it's very interesting to see the learning dynamics, but the end result and the objective or the learning outcome of the experience are still achieved. And we're very happy about that because ultimately we want them to succeed.
And while for the school it is the first time opening its gates to persons like Christoph, Kimberly and Demani to study dance,
they're eager to receive the information and we're inspired by this drive to learn and to succeed. So even though we have an interpreter, the interpreter is also learning from the experience because we have interpreters who have never been in a school environment like this where dance is concerned, so they're also learning new language. It somehow feels as though they've brought more to us.
for many of the deaf community, the fear of fitting in lingers. But for Christoph, Kimberly and Demani, dancing is passion-driven and determination-ruled.
Well, I hope that what we've done here at the Edinburgh College in terms of opening our doors to 3 deaf students will encourage others and inspire them to go after their dreams.
So I remember in high school, there was a quote that says, "I believe I can achieve." I go by that. So in the Bible, it talks about, "I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me." I believe I can achieve.
Mommy,
Yes, Zoe?
can we read this book? It will only take 10 minutes.
Sure, sit down. Every spring, Madame Angel Wing arranges.
Do you have 10 minutes? Read with your child today. Reading with your children for just 10 minutes each day helps develop their language and listening skills, stimulates their imagination, and expands their understanding of the world. So, start reading with your child today.
Aiken has a familiar ring to it, right? Well, we met with her father, who showed us how life's challenging moments can turn out to be big opportunities. For him, a challenge at birth created a difference for himself and many others. Here's the story of Neville Anthony Aiken.
Born deaf. My mother had German measles, rubella, and either I could have had a physical disability, be blind, but I became deaf, and I'm happy with it. I'm perfect with it. My mother, she was really concerned. She didn't know where to put me. St. Christopher's School for the Deaf was too far. It was in Brownstone. So my mother held me at home till I was about 6 years old, and I found Daniel Williams School for the Deaf. I was placed there at 6 and continued from there. The first time I signed, or the first time I witnessed sign language, was 6. Before that, it was lip reading and gestures. The children would sign, but the teachers didn't sign. But I was good at lip reading, but the education aspect of it, learning that wasn't a part of it. We were focusing on being able to speak and being with speech therapists, and that's why hence not having the great education I should. I was working at Jamaica Flour Mills. It was a good job, but communication was always a challenge. Sometimes there were a lot of misunderstandings. So I decided to resign. I didn't work for 1 year, and then I had my son after that year. And then JD called me, Jamaica Association for the Deaf. It wasn't my goal to be a mentor, but it has truly been beneficial because the children need that. They need role models, they need mentors. I encourage the deaf children to have deaf pride, to know that they can. You're on the same level as a hearing person. It doesn't matter that you can't hear. You have a lot of deaf adults who are successful, and you can achieve. You can get the education that you want, you can do anything that you want, you can achieve. Don't feel like you can't because you're deaf. The same hearing people who are teasing you and saying you're dumb and all these things. Don't focus on that, focus on yourself and focus on improving yourself. With the sign language, everyone is included. That's my philosophy. So that means hearing people have to learn how to sign so that they can respect the deaf community, and the deaf person himself or herself will feel pride. Because when I think back on when I was growing up, how I was forced to lip read and forced to talk, I'm happy to see now that sign language is there and everybody is using it, and that's my philosophy.
The JIS Heritage Competition is celebrating 10 years of youth expression on Jamaican history, culture, and tradition. If you're a primary level student, 9 to 12 years old, enter the essay competition. Write 400 to 500 words on the topic. I promise to stand up for justice, brotherhood, and peace. Identify a Jamaican from our past or an institution that exemplifies this statement from our national pledge and say why. Secondary level students, enter the poster competition. And tertiary students, send us your best snap for the photo competition. The topic, I promise to stand up for justice, brotherhood, and peace. Enter now and play your part in preserving our national heritage. Great prizes to be won. Competition closes October 24. For competition rules and guidelines, contact the JIS.
Nothing causes confusion like incorrect information. After a while, we have no clue what's true or false. So, don't add to the chaos. Whatever you choose to repeat, check it out first.
There have been many myths surrounding the coronavirus disease, the same one now officially known as COVID-19. I've heard that Jamaica's temperature is too hot, so COVID-19 won't survive here, or that you need to eat garlic to help prevent you from being infected. I know you've also heard some stuff and may even believe half or more of what you've heard. So let's take some time and debunk the myths of coronavirus. People have said that the novel coronavirus cannot be transmitted in the heat. That is a lie. The virus can be transmitted in all areas, including those with hot and humid weather like Jamaica. Another myth is that it can be transmitted through a mosquito bite. To date, there has been no information or evidence to suggest that the new coronavirus could be transmitted by mosquitoes. This one has been very popular. Only old people can contract the coronavirus. Do not be fooled. People of all ages can be infected by the new coronavirus. However, older people, particularly those with pre-existing medical conditions like asthma, diabetes, and heart disease, appear to be more vulnerable to becoming severely ill with the virus. This is another popular one. Eat more garlic, you won't catch the virus. Garlic is a healthy food that may have some antimicrobial properties. However, there is no evidence from the current outbreak that eating garlic has protected people from the new coronavirus. These are just some of the myths that surround the coronavirus. Make sure you take time out to know your facts and do what needs to be done as we all try to contain the spread of this disease.
I wish to emphasize that the success of our efforts is contingent on the support of all Jamaicans. including the deliberate efforts to access and share accurate information on the virus, thus helping to minimize the fears and anxiety that has been associated with the spread of the COVID-19. At the same time, we must, in keeping with good hygiene, maintain a distance of at least 2 meters from persons who are coughing or sneezing, frequently perform hand hygiene by washing hands thoroughly with soap and water or using a hand sanitizer if hands are not visibly soiled, cover our mouths and noses when coughing or sneezing with a tissue and then discarding it, and avoid touching our faces and each other unnecessarily.
You heard the Health Minister. Let's play our part while building those immune systems as we tackle this virus together.
As we observe International Day of Sign Languages, we must realize that if we are to address the current challenges faced by persons with disabilities, there ought to be at least an ounce of creativity and a yard of commitment. Here's an example. In these times, the wearing of masks is somewhat commonplace, but this may impact the visual cues of someone who suffers from mild deafness or have completely lost their hearing. So how can you, the hearing individual, help? Number 1. Writing things down is always a good idea. You can use pen on paper, whiteboards, or text on device screens. Number 2, reduce background noise as much as possible by moving to a quieter space. Number 3, if possible, use assistive devices like remote microphones to improve the quality of speech over background noise. Number 4, if you have access to a smartphone, downloading a speech-to-text app can help the communication process, and many of those apps are also free. And number 5, where possible, use an interpreter, quite like what our government has been doing at the press conferences linked to COVID-19. The fact is, this pandemic presents a unique opportunity to design and implement disability-inclusive responses. You can play a big part in this. After all, we want to ensure that all Jamaicans can truly play a part in making Jamaica the place of choice to live, work, raise families, and do business.
Whenever you hear the following tone, the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, ODPEM, will be giving information on an emergency situation affecting the island. Please be on the alert and listen to your radio and television for further information. This was a test of the Emergency Alert System, brought to you by ODPEM.
We've come to the end of the magazine, but you should never stop learning and sharing, and that's why we'll be back tomorrow with a fresh package to keep you in the know. We're also making this and other editions available on our YouTube channel. You can also keep up with the JIS by visiting our website and following us on our Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter pages. From all of us here, keep safe and have a great day. I'm Theodore Henry. Bye-bye.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.